The Cold War was one of the most intense conflicts in modern history, but unlike traditional wars, it was fought without direct large-scale battles between the two main rivals, the United States and the Soviet Union. Instead of bullets and bombs on battlefields, this war was fought through politics, ideology, technology, espionage, and fear. It all began after World War II ended in 1945. The world was left divided. On one side stood the United States, promoting capitalism and democracy. On the other stood the Soviet Union, spreading communism. These two superpowers had been allies during the war, but their visions for the future were completely different, and that difference sparked decades of tension. The Cold War wasn't cold because it lacked danger. It was cold because the two sides never directly fought each other in a full-scale war. However, the threat of nuclear destruction was always present. Both nations raced to build powerful weapons, leading to the terrifying concept of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, the idea that if one side launched nuclear missiles, the other would retaliate and both would be destroyed. One of the first major flashpoints was the Berlin blockade. The Soviet Union tried to cut off access to West Berlin, hoping to force the Allies out. In response, the United States and its allies launched the Berlin Airlift, delivering food and supplies by air for almost a year. It was a powerful message. America would not back down. Soon after, the world became divided into two military alliances. The United States led the NATO, while the Soviet Union formed the Warsaw Pact. This division turned the Cold War into a global standoff, where countries were pressured to choose sides. Although the US and Soviet Union never fought directly, they supported opposing sides in smaller conflicts known as proxy wars. One of the earliest was the Korean War, where North Korea, backed by the Soviet Union and China, fought South Korea, supported by the United States. The war ended in a stalemate, but it showed how dangerous Cold War tensions could become. Another major crisis came in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just miles away from the United States. For 13 days, the world stood on the brink of nuclear war. American President John F. Kennedy and Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev engaged in intense negotiations. In the end, both sides stepped back, avoiding disaster, but the fear of nuclear war became very real. The Cold War was not just about weapons, it was also a battle of ideas. The United States promoted freedom, democracy, and free markets, while the Soviet Union supported state control and communist ideology. This ideological conflict influenced countries around the world, especially in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Technology and space became another battlefield. In 1957, the Soviet Union shocked the world by launching Sputnik 1, the first human-made satellite. The United States quickly responded, leading to the space race. This competition reached its peak in 1969, when American astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first human to walk on the moon during the Apollo 11 moon landing. It was more than a scientific achievement, it was a symbolic victory for the United States. Espionage, or spying, played a huge role in the Cold War. Both sides tried to gather secrets about each other's plans and technology. Agencies like the CIA in the United States and the KGB in the Soviet Union operated in the shadows, turning intelligence gathering into a dangerous and secretive game. Another key aspect of the Cold War was propaganda. Both sides used media, films, and speeches to promote their system and criticize the other. Fear was a powerful tool. People in both countries were constantly reminded of the enemy threat. As the decades passed, tensions rose and fell. The 1970s saw a period known as détente, where both sides tried to reduce tensions through agreements and diplomacy. However, conflicts like the Vietnam War continued to show how deeply the Cold War affected the world. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union began to weaken due to economic problems and internal pressures. A new leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, introduced reforms like glasnost, or openness, and perestroika, or restructuring. These changes aimed to modernize the Soviet system, but they also led to its collapse. In 1989, one of the most powerful symbols of the Cold War fell, the fall of the Berlin Wall. This event marked the beginning of the end. Just 2 years later, in 1991, the Soviet Union officially dissolved, bringing the Cold War to an end. The Cold War lasted nearly half a century. It reshaped global politics, influenced countless lives, and brought humanity to the edge of destruction. Yet it also led to major advancements in science, technology, and international relations. In the end, the Cold War teaches us a powerful lesson. Not all wars are fought with weapons. Some are fought with ideas, fear, and influence. And sometimes the most dangerous battles are the ones that never officially begin. The Cold War was a silent battle, a war of shadows between two giants. No massive battlefield, no direct clash, but the entire world felt its impact. It reminds us that power isn't always shown through force. Sometimes it's shown through control, strategy, and the constant threat of what could happen.